Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
Hey guys, First Responder Financial Freedom, Mike, Tyler, me, Aaron, of course, and our newest friend, Josue. I'm not going to butcher his last name because I wanted to be friends with me after this. So Josue is he's a developer up just outside of Boston. It looks like Dorchester County is his primary market. He does. He's a Marine. He was a former lieutenant in the fire department up in Somersville, and he was a special response team and an MP while you're in the Marines, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And at nighttime, you're going to school for construction.
Correct.
So you never have downtime, and you're full throttle all the time. Go.
That's about right. That's correct.
All right. So talk to me about what you got going on, because your past and current projects are stout. Like, they're big numbers. So how did you go from, I'm guessing, high school to Marines? Did your 5 years in the Marines, and then what? Like, how did you, like, you know what? I want to do this instead.
Yeah, no, honestly, being a first responder kind of found me in a sense. So I had a mentor since I was 14 years old when I was at the Somerville YMCA, and kind of guided me through a lot of the big decisions in my life. One of them was join the Marine Corps, but regardless of what he said, I was gonna join. That was really my passion. After that, I was really trying to figure out if I was going to stay in and become, do 20 years in the military, or what was going to be my transition. At the time, he kept telling me, take makeup exams, take fire makeup exam, take police makeup exam, because I was in the military, and it just so happened that I took a makeup exam when I was home on leave, Christmas leave, and from there I was I was number 4 on the list for the Somerville Fire Department. So basically, that it was a kind of a smooth transition. The Marine Corps actually allowed me to leave a month early just so I could start training for the fire department.
Nice. So did they push back your hire date because you were in the Marines and you had to come up to the end of your contract? How'd that work?
Yeah, no, I have 3 combat tours, 2 to Iraq and then 1 on ship with the Navy. We ended up getting 32 pirates. So because I deployed so much, I didn't have a lot of leave. So I had so much time, so I got to just leave early because I can just take the vacation time that I accumulated throughout my military career.
Were you over in Somalia?
We were off the coast.
Off the coast. I kind of figured when you said the pirates. I had a couple other friends that were there as well, doing the same thing, and they actually had really good memories and stories. Something else. Firefighters and military always have the good stories, right?
That's right.
All right, so walk me through this. So now you're a lieutenant. Now you got in the Somerville Fire Department. You went up through the ranks of lieutenant, and then, like, how did you decide? I'm going to start transitioning from this into real estate.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was kind of like it found me. Like I said, it's like I'm not really chasing these things, but once I'm in there, I'm diving in deep. So long story short, after my first year in the Somerville Fire Department, I decided that I was going to be purchasing my home a house because I needed a place to park. I had an H2 Hummer at the time, so I needed a place to park the H2 Hummer, and my landlord wasn't going to allow that. So we had to make some different plans, and so that's really what got me into real estate. But through that process of trying to figure out how to acquire real estate, I took the real estate course. I didn't get my license at the time. A few years later, I did. And I just kept asking everybody that owned 1 house or 2 houses, how did you do it? What do I need to know? Started going to first-time home buyer courses and just really diving in deep, and started realizing that a lot of the skill sets that I learned in the military could apply into real estate. And what I mean by that is I started thinking about tactics, started thinking about strategy. I was able to buy my first home in Somerville for $450,000. And it just so happened when I went to that house, the previous owner, was also in the Navy. So him and I really hit it off really very, very fast. So there was less more negotiation. It was more like more just working together and one goal. He's trying to sell, I'm trying to buy. And then through that process, talking to the city of Somerville and understanding the different programs that were available. Long story short, my purchase was supposed to be 3.5% down, which should have been like 20 grand plus closing costs. I end up being all in that deal with 2,750 just by putting the programs together through the education that I learned to purchase my first home.
Did you use your VA to buy your first home?
No, I did not. So that was also strategy and tactics. And the reason why, because I was afraid if I did use the VA for my first home, that I wouldn't be able to use the first-time home buyers. But I knew if I use a first-time home buyers first, and then I would have the option to use the VA loan at a different time, which I have.
So anybody listening, VA loan is one of the two options the government options offers for 100% financing. The other one being the USDA, which is more rural land. So a lot of the military guys, they don't use strategy to buy their first home with the VA like Josue does, which is smart. Tyler, what are the rates look like right now for the VA guys? Because I know it's a little different than the standard retail buyer.
They'll be like, well, out here in California, based off of those loan amounts, they're like in the low fives, like 5.375, stuff like that. So it's a lot better than conventional or FHA. They don't have any monthly mortgage insurance, which is huge. And if you have any type of service disability, they can waive the VA funding fee. So I love the VA loan. It's an awesome program. And same thing with first-time home buyer stuff. You know, that's huge as well. And I was just going to type in the notes. Fun little fact, you can qualify for a first-time home buyer if you have not owned a principal residence in the last 3 years. So you can use it. Let's say you sold it, didn't own anything for 3 years and wanted to jump back in the market. As long as you have not owned a principal residence in the last 3 years, you can qualify again for a first-time home buyer.
Nice. And the VA, is that an assumable loan?
It is, and that's becoming in vogue right now because, you know, rates are obviously a lot higher than where they have been, and a lot of people aren't really willing to take on a higher rate. So VA is one of the few loans that you can assume. It's actually kind of funny when you sign your loan docs. There's this huge thing on the top of on the note in the deed of trust that says this loan is only assumable with the express permission of the Department of Veteran Affairs, I think. Something to that effect. It's in huge bold letters. It's the only document I ever noticed. I look like, oh man, it's not like you can't say, oh, I didn't see it. it's huge. So
I didn't know, I swear.
Yeah, I know, it's massive. It always cracks me up.
So
can I piggyback off that?
Yeah.
And instead of selling it, what you can do is actually refinance out. And once you get a conventional loan, you can actually use the first-time home buyers again.
I see strategy. I see strategy and tactics. Smart. So, okay, now we bought your first home. You use the first-time home buyers. What was the next step?
Yeah, the next step is I came to the conclusion that I would not be able to buy in the area that I purchased my first home. So I went to Western Mass, where the properties are a lot cheaper. So I was able to acquire a lot of assets, a lot of real estate just over time throughout the years. I ended up growing it into over 30 units. I since sold them all, and I only focus in Boston today.
Nice. So random fact, I don't know why I know this. New Kids on the Block, Marky Mark, and Dropkick Murphys are all in your neck of the woods. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we also have in Dorchester, we have a burger place called Wahlburgers by Marky Mark's family.
My dad's
so in Tyler's background, he's got some Dropkick Murphys swag on the wall. Or
social distortion. Yeah, there it is.
There it is. So he's a big fan.
So I actually got to be on stage with Dropkick Murphy.
I did too.
Really?
Did you go in Boston?
Yeah. So one of the guys that passed away in my unit, he was a big fan. So they came to like his funeral and everything like that. This is prior to me being even in the unit. But after that, you know, a lot of the guys kept in contact with him. They had an event in North Carolina where I was stationed, so they invited us on stage.
Nice. That's cool. That's sweet. We went on stage with them. We met Scruffy up in Baltimore. Just we were out drinking. And he met him. He's like, "You guys want to come on stage later?" We're like, "Absolutely." Mike, have you ever sold one of your properties to a VA buyer?
I don't believe so.
So I've done it once, and I paid for all their closings. So they basically got to move into a house for free because they had 100% financing. I paid for the closing, so they basically got a free house. So guys listening, there's more ways to skin a cat than one. So go into strategy and tactics. All right, so
Aaron, hold on 1 second, because this is something that bugs me too, because a lot of agents, especially in the last few years, have dissuaded sellers from picking the VA buyer because there was some fear that they wouldn't qualify. It was tougher to do. VA contracts have the highest closing ratio out of any loan product versus conventional or FHA. So agents, stop telling your sellers that VA loans are not going to close. A, they're veterans. We should respect that. And B, it's just not true.
So that's good advice.
Dropping bombs.
Yeah, Jose. So was your mentor still in your ear at this point? Like you're in the fire, you did your 5 years in the Marines. You went to the construction courses. You're in the Somerville Fire Department. Is your mentor still in your ear, like telling you what to do? Do you have people on your side? Like, were some people holding you back, some people pushing you forward? What's your situation looking like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had a meeting just yesterday, just on different business, but we have a strong relationship. You know, he's almost like a father figure to me at this point. And he was actually he's retired now, but he was a real estate developer. So we always had that connection. So he's a good resource for me to bounce questions off and just really go through this path, because, you know, it's funny because when I think about what makes the Marine Corps so successful, it's really tradition. It's really passing on that sergeant, passing on that knowledge to that private coming up, and eventually that private becomes that sergeant, and it's like, and it keeps passing it on. So that's really what I try to instill, even in my company and the people around me, just that mentorship and just passing that back from, because I was lucky enough to have it in my life.
So that I love that you have a mentor. It's hard for people to find mentors, let alone know how to talk to them. Just a word of advice to anybody looking for a mentor: don't go to somebody you don't know and just say, "Hey, what can you do for me?" It should be the other way around. Like, what can I do for you?
Let me pick your brain.
Relationship. Yeah, a $5 cup of coffee is not worth it to a lot of guys who are making millions of dollars and don't have free time. So build a relationship with them. What can I do for you? How can we have a symbiotic relationship? I know Mike and Tyler both have a lot of people reach out to them and ask them like advice or mentorship or pay for it. Jose, have you had the same thing where people come to you and be like, "Hey, teach me everything you know and give me all of your free time"?
Oh, absolutely. The way I create like roadblocks for that is I might say, you know, read this book, and after you're done reading this book, let's have a conversation, because that at least it makes you think that, you know what, they're going to put a few hours into it, or however long, a week into it. And then if they're willing to go that far, then you can at least give them, you know, 20 minutes or half an hour, and then see how much more they're willing to do. I can tell you, I have a lot of great mentors. And the way I have found all my mentors is not by looking for them. It's by working hard. And they're like, wow, this guy's like really working hard. Let's help him figure it out, you know? And I think that's really some of the best ways. I can tell you in my career, some of the best deals that I have done was when I found the deal and then I brought it to somebody that's already been in the industry, and I say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. I think this is a great deal. And if you can provide value, like we closed on that deal and we both made a profit, but that also created a relationship, because when I call him, he doesn't know if I'm calling him for advice or if I'm calling him with another deal. So he's going to pick up.
Well played.
This is kind of like at 2:00 in the morning when you're picking up the fat person off the floor, like, help me, help you. Like, you got to put your legs underneath of you first before I can pick you up. Like, help me.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like he was willing to give up part of his profit in exchange for, you know, mentorship and help. And I feel like a lot of people, they find a deal and they don't really want to share any of it because they still have like a scarcity mindset, which is fine. But I mean, I'd rather have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. So I think it's a good thing for people listening to catch on to that is, hey, you know, if you do find a deal and you don't have the experience, partner with somebody, JV, share, and in exchange for the advice and the expertise that you're being given, if you have to give up a little bit of profit, it's well worth it.
I mean, I believe the money is secondary. If you're willing to just sit there and educate yourself, the money is literally endless if you have the right knowledge and the right mindset.
I agree. Yeah.
So
if you learn a job skill, you'll have it for life. It's not just a one-time thing. Like once you have the skill set, you can do it. Like look at Mike. Mike's like he repeats over and over and over again for all the houses he flips and holds and his strategies, right, Mike?
What do you mean? Repeats what?
Like your strategies that you do. Like once you have that knowledge in place, like you just reuse that strategy and the thought process.
Yeah, I always say it's like once you learn how to fish, you know, it's like you can go fish, right? But so Jose, like you just talked about, like you kind of got started, and I want to say I think you're the first person I've ever met that's got into real estate over the fact you needed a parking spot for your Hummer. Like that's the first one for me, man. But so you get this house, and then you're on the job, and you just oh by the way, I got 30 rentals. How did you do that while working the job? Because I think there's a lot of folks that probably listen to this that are like, well, I can relate. I was in the military, or even if they weren't in the military, they are a year or two on the fire department. They want to do something additional, but they don't know how. Like, how did you do that? Like on a firefighter salary, get 30 houses. Were you doing all the work yourself? How can you just kind of briefly describe what that looked like in that period of your life?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Beg, borrow, and deal. It's a combination of everything. I have used seller financing, where the seller literally helped me get enough capital to close on that deal. So basically, what that looked like is the bank would lend 80% of the deal. I had 10% in, and the seller had 10% holdback in. So that helped me a lot, especially when I was going to Springfield and I was buying like 16 units. I bought a 14 unit package deal. Like I said, we used a VA loan. I have used my own Somerville, fire department retirement money, and borrowed it against myself, so I just kind of like figured it out.
But so you got resourceful.
Yeah, very. I mean, that is literally one of the core values of my company. You can see it on my website. It says resourcefulness because it means that much to me. But I really believe that if you want to be successful, if you want to do anything great, you have to approach it with my job is this 40 hours is my job. And the greatness happens in between that next hour and the next 40 hours. Are you willing to put in extra work or extra hours to cross that bridge to get to the next level? That's really the question.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike. So what you gonna say?
I was just gonna say it's super valid because I think a lot of people just, I've said it numerous times. One of the things that drives me crazy is the must be nice. It must be nice to be Jose and have, a 200 unit development, right? But they don't want to kind of get up and push themselves back from the kitchen table and do the work to get there. And that's fine. Like that everybody's got to run their own race. But I don't think a lot of people realize the amount of work it takes outside of just the normal everyday Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 to make that kind of stuff happen. So you're not just living that like average existence, which I think for some folks, that's 100% fine. And I don't fault them for that. But like whenever you have like that thirst that you can't quench without going out there and doing that kind of stuff, like you don't have to explain that to those people. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. I mean, David Goggins said it best. Nobody's coming to save you.
Exactly.
You have to do it for yourself.
I have yet to have anybody knock on my front door and say, I'm here to give you all the money you need to make everything you want in this life come true. Right. It's not going to happen. So don't sit there and wish for it. Go out there and make it happen. But so I can't help but to think like when you were on the job, here's this strapping young lad, number 4 on the list, Marine Corps, stacking properties. At a certain point, did you start to have a little bit of confliction with your identity? Like, hey, here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm doing. And like, how did you balance that? Because I think sometimes myself included have thought about that. Like, I used to keep those lives completely separate, like fire department, real estate. Like I didn't want anybody to know each other. Right. And then I turned a completely different direction and literally have an account now that says the investing fireman. Like, so I just said, screw it. We're putting it all together. How did you handle that? What did that look like?
Well, I mean, it's just like being a developer, and I'm sure you understand this. Sometimes you're rich, sometimes you're poor. It's about clouds and dirt, right? It's like you got to get comfortable on both of those sides. But it comes a time in your career, and it seems like you already have crossed that bridge, where you just got to live with it, because that part of you not sharing that is actually holding profits back, because you want to be able to tell everybody what you're looking for. You never know who wants to put money in your project or who's looking to sell. And if you keep those two separate, it's going to really hinder your growth as a real estate investor.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cause like once some folks might notice, like I've been trying to get more active on social media. Frankly, I still don't like it. Like I still don't like putting all that stuff out there, but it is unbelievable to me. Like that is the modern day megaphone and podium. Like, and if you're doing the right thing, and somebody said something to me recently that kind of resonated, he's like, listen, man, if you're not out there trying to help connect the dots for those guys, like they're just going to get taken advantage by somebody that is not genuine or authentic. And, so don't look at it as like you're taking an advantage of somebody. Like, and that's not necessarily what I was thinking, but like, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like they can use you as like somebody they like, know, and trust. And you're just using this as the conduit to help connect that information to that group of people. So totally agree with that. And back to Summerfield, right? Somerville, I'm sorry. Somerville, when did you kind of make that decision? Like, you know what? I'm not going to stay around for retirement. Like I'm going to pursue something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that decision kind of as I acquired more real estate, and I'm talking about the 40 hours at the firehouse and then the other 40 hours into real estate, it comes a time where you gotta, it's not feasible anymore. And, in a sense, it's not fair to both sides, right? So just making that decision, it was when I decided, you know what, I don't have enough time to really put into the real estate as much as, and I acquired too much real estate. It needs my time. I might get a call about having to coordinate with a plumber, and I'm doing CPR. Like 2 hours later, the basement's flooded or whatever might have happened. You really can't deal with that. So I think that was a big defining factor, and I think it's just natural ability. It's like breathing, right? When you become good at something and you put time and effort into it. I have been on the number one team as a brokerage. I have built ground up, and I was still, on the fire department. Like I had the track record that gave me the confidence that, I could do this full time, and I will do this full time. And after that, I just created a plan. Okay, what's my exit strategy? When do I think it is going to happen? And as you know, COVID happens, and then you just got to adjust, right? So.
Yeah. So let's celebrate some of your wins, because I stalked your page before we started this conversation, and I want to celebrate some of the wins that you've already done. So for those who don't know, the Boston area is one of the most expensive places in the U.S. to buy real estate. I know this because they're on par with the D.C. prices and the L.A. prices, and it's just astronomical. So Monroe Street, buy and hold rental in Somerville. Medford Street is a burr, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Eden Street and Charlestown, Mass is a buy and hold. And then the projects you're working on now, like these are big numbers. So when we talk about success, like this is what I'm going to highlight. Alaska Street, Roxbury, Mass, 7 condos in under construction phase. Bartlett Station, 28 condos, design review. Bartlett Station, 37 condos, board approved. Bartlett Station, 61 condos, Article 60, or Article 80, which I have no idea what that is. And Arboretum Road is in zoning phase, 230 apartment complex. So those are big numbers, bro. I mean, how did you go from finding a Hummer parking spot to 230 in process? And what the heck is Article 80 project phase?
Article 80 is just the size of the project. It's just the zoning process. So it's nothing special. They just give it a special name. But to answer your question about, how do you go from, looking for a place to live to doing 230 unit project? And I think it's a combination of a few things. Like when we already talked about it, is when you put your head down and you're working very, very hard, it seems like, more people want to help you, and they want to kind of guide you and show you how to do it. And sometimes those come in the form of partners, right? The 7-unit project that came from the previous partner that I had that we were talking about. I made him a lot of money. So then there was another opportunity to make money together on that project. And then the 28-unit project was just another developer and says, hey, I like everything that you're doing. You're already doing the 7-unit project. Let's times this by 4. Let's get to 28. So that's really how that one happened. And just so happened that same partner also had the 37-unit project and then the 61-unit project. And by that time, I was kind of on the radar. So what ended up happening is I got invited to a lot of different organizations and different training, and just made a lot of great connections. And somebody's like, oh, I think you can really do this at the highest level. Would you be interested in doing, possibly doing 230 unit project? So and I made that leap there because I was like, you know what, I can figure it out. I'm gonna have, because what I learned is every time you go from, let's say, 3 units to 60 units to 230 units, it's almost like, grade school, high school, and college. Like, it gets harder, but you also have better professors, right? You have more. It just really changes. And I would say the second part was like the mindset shift, was understanding, reading like Dan Pena. He has a book called Your First 100 Million, and he talks about how you can grow your credibility, and you can grow your mindset by really attaching on to those seasoned investors that have done it before, right? You're not a fraud because you're like, hey, this is my first one. Yeah, it is your first one, but everybody's first one. This one time, one of my partners, it was his first time doing 28 units, or it was his first time doing 61 units, or it was his first time doing 230 units. And you just get really comfortable of being in that environment, and you grow really, really fast. It only pushes you to even work even harder. Like, every morning I wake up at 5 o'clock, I work for 1 hour, I go to the gym, and then it's back to work.
It goes back to your network is your net wealth.
Absolutely.
So, Jose, you said that you sold all your other rentals in Western Mass. So, was that just a conscientious decision to be like, you know what, I can level up here, or these were just taking too much time? Like, in the last episode, we talked about the 80-20 rule, basically how 20% of your effort gets you 80% of your results. Were those, my guess is those 30 units or 30 properties were taking 80% of your time, but 20% of the results. And these opportunities that you're talking about were now something that you could put 20% of the effort, even though that's a lot of effort, and get 80% of the results. Would you support that, or was it a different decision making?
Well, I think that, if you look at most successful people, they do the same thing over and over and over. It's a niche, and it's laser focus, and just continue to focus on that and become the best at what you do. And that's really where the profit is. So as far as Springfield, I wanted to move away. For one, it was a 2-hour drive. For two, it was just I had less control because of the distance. I needed a property manager. Now I do property management in-house because I brought everything into Boston. If I'm selling something, I could be my own agent, or I can hire an agent. So I just had a lot more control. And by being laser focused on my one area, which is Boston now, is I bought property where I'm my own comp. Like, literally, the bank is pulling up and it's another one of my properties, and I won't tell them, right? I'm like, yeah, I think, especially if it gives me a higher value on
boss level,
what I'm trying to buy. But I think when you can control the market in that sense, it gives you a lot of security, and it really helps your brand, and it really, only good things happen when you see people that are just focused on wholesaling or flipping, and they want to do 300 unit projects and become an agent. It's like there's just too much. And I learned that from The Pumpkin Plan. I don't know if you guys ever read that.
Mike McAllowitz.
Yeah. So obviously I'm a big reader, but development's my pumpkin, right? That's the one I focus on, and I wanted to grow. And that's what has been able to make me successful in the last couple of years.
Well, let's talk about acquisitions. Like, so some of the ones you found are one-offs, right? So like a row house or a single family house in the Boston area. So I think your price range is right around the same as DC's. So you're right around the $700 to $1 million for a single family unit acquisition. How are you finding your deals?
Honestly, a lot of it is network. Some of it is just finding things that other people did not see. So, for example, I purchased a duplex, a 2-family in Roxbury, and I think I overpaid. Right, I paid more than what I thought I should have paid, but I actually made money. I walked away from the closing table with more money than when I got into that room. A couple of reasons that happened is because I refinanced another property to put the money in. I was also my own broker. So I made money as being my own broker. But the real reason why I was willing to overpay for that property is because I knew that there's a high possibility that I can do ground up 3 more units on that plot of land because it's so big. So to me, the value was the land more than the house. And most people are just looking at the house.
Nice, nice. So you thought outside the box, which most people won't do. So
Correct.
the some of the projects you're working on, I was looking through some of the pictures as we were talking, and it seems like you have a pretty standard type of design. Do you deviate from your designs at all? Like, do you do like pop tops or additions, or do you do how do you look at properties? Do you have a whole bunch of different strategies, or what?
I prefer to do ground up because one reason I prefer to do ground up, most people are afraid of it because the education and the risks to really have a strong understanding of it, it just makes the markets that much smaller. So that's really my focus with my construction background. I have a construction management degree. So I think that's really my advantage over the market. So I always prefer to do ground up over say a rehab. In a rehab, you never know what's behind the wall. So I have no walls, so I know what's behind them. I'm putting them up, you know. So for me, that's just really being laser focused and just trying to continue to repeat the process over and over and just keep doing the same thing. And that's where the success is just focus, focus, focus.
Yeah, some of these houses that are 100 years old, you open up a wall and like, what in the world were you guys doing? Like, I've had to lift 3 houses in my life to fix and repair, and it's just like, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore. So I get it. Um, I'm not gonna go into a story about lifting houses, but that's a whole other podcast. Um, so the properties that you're looking at now. Actually, let's go back. I want to talk about your degree, because there's always an argument of, is college worth it? Is college not worth it? Should I go to trade school? Should I go to educational school where I'm sitting in a classroom? So you obviously have a bachelor's in construction management. Do you think that is a big part, a little part? Does it play into your decisions and your developments?
I think that the education is great, and but I also feel that the biggest value is actually the network, right? And one of my professors is my mentor. Him and I talk every other week about what I have going on. So he's really guiding me into that route. I feel that if somebody says, you know what, I want to flip 200 units, or like individuals, like 2 and 3 families, then you kind of don't really need that college education. But if you want to be a developer that's doing 50 units, 100 units or more, it's almost like you have to, right? And in a sense of, if look at it this way, I'm advising, or I'm the team leader, and I have to hire an attorney, a zoning attorney. I have to hire an architect. You can't become an architect without having a degree, right? So it's almost like you got to be at the same level as the people that are working under you, because that's not safe. You almost have to be just as smart as your architect. You're driving that bus. At the end of the day, as a team leader, as a developer, if the project is successful or not, it's your fault. So you better educate yourself.
Yeah, take it in the chin. Like, don't try to shirk responsibility, deny, deflect, and re-accuse somebody else. There's one guy I want to highlight. His name is Dr. Joseph Asamoah. He's a bigger pockets guru. He's based in the DC area, and one of his strategies is to buy a 3-unit property, dig out the basement, and then pop the top. So instead of having 3 levels, now you have 5 levels, and he does condo conversions. So each unit, he's getting one massive chunk of change with Section 8, or he's getting 5 different units and hedging his potential risk by getting a multi-unit out of this. Now, DC is starting to crack down on that. Are you guys doing condo conversions up in Baltimore? This is me being curious.
Yeah, no, we do a lot. We still do condo conversions, depending on where the location is. So, we in Boston, we have a affordable housing crisis right now. So one thing they try to make you do is build more affordable units. So something like, let's say, if you're in the city of Somerville, where I grew up, and you wanted to do a condo conversion on 3 units, one of those units is going to become affordable. So the numbers don't work as well. But what I will say for our area, what usually happens is, especially if you're near college, you can take the living room away and create another bedroom, and that usually helps the numbers. If you can, say, go from a house that has 7 bedrooms and now you turned it to 10 bedroom, and we're renting out, let's say, $1,000 per bedroom, you just created $3,000 more.
Yeah, so I see that in College Park where I live at a lot. I live by University of Maryland. Same thing. You get a lot of condo conversions, basement conversions, attic. They'll pop the top or raise the back of the roof just to add another bedroom and bath. So yeah, there's value add in a lot of real estate that people just overlook because it's not the cookie cutter, four walls and a roof, and I just want to lipstick on a pig and turn around and sell it and flip it. One thing I do want to highlight is when you were talking about transitioning into everything in house and taking care of it and bringing it closer to home. It seems like when you're talking about competing against a whole lot of people in one arena versus a whole little bit in another arena. Mike seems to be in that transition now, where it's instead of competing against 1,000 people to buy houses, he's competing against 10 people to buy storage unit facilities to increase his chances of winning. Mike, what I've been watching your shift over the last, I guess, 2 years. What do you attribute that to? Are you just tired of being in the single family realm, or you just want to try something new, or you feel like you're growing?
I guess you could say a little bit of all the above. Like, I think there's more scalability. You can only, like we said just a little bit ago, there's only so many hours in a day, and the 1 and 2 unit model, while you can be successful with it, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I just think you can kind of take the economies of scale and go do, for instance, a 9,000 square foot storage facility versus a 2-unit rental property. So now I got over 100 people paying me rent versus 2, and it didn't really take any more effort. So I just think it's going into that, like, next, whether it be a different asset class or just a different, staying within the same asset class but different size. So like Josue's doing the same thing. Like he was doing would you say a 14 unit? Well, now you just tacked on, like, okay, instead of a 14, it's a 34. It probably didn't take that much more effort. In some cases, I would argue it probably takes less effort to do a little bit bigger than the smaller stuff, but you get a disproportionate amount of return. So I think that's one of the main reasons I did it. As far as going against less investors, or less buyers rather, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I would say that the pedigree changes a little bit because now you're competing with other investors that maybe are a little more sophisticated, maybe have deeper pockets, maybe have better financing. So where you're out buying the single family houses to whether flip it, rent it, whatever the case may be, you're competing with a mix of investors, maybe homeowners, potential homeowners, whatever the case is. And while there's more, you can usually navigate those waters pretty easily. Maybe not easily. You can navigate those waters and be successful with that. I don't think I have enough background yet in the commercial or self-storage space to be able to make the comparison yet. But I would say so far it's worked out well because they're small enough that the big boys aren't playing in that arena, but they're big enough that the average landlord isn't playing in that arena. So I'm kind of in like that little sweet spot where it's like I'm off Jose's radar, but I'm off the I'm higher, a little bit higher than the guy that's got 2 rentals. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's kind of in a nutshell what I've seen thus far, changing sizes and asset classes. I can tell you, I just did a complete remodel last year of a burn up 4-unit. And I specifically remember, or vividly remember telling Bill, like, I will never do a 4-unit like this again. I'll never do a 2 or 4-unit, because all this work that I'm doing, I could have very easily, maybe not very easily, I could have just as easily done a 40-unit because I probably could have hired a better contractor that had better subs that, man, I think that's I don't know. I'm sure he can speak to it better than I can, but when you're dealing with a 1 and 2 bedroom, or 1 and 2 unit building, there's only so much meat on that bone, right? And you're only ever going to be able to attract a certain pedigree of people to do the work. And just like tenants, typically, this is not set in stone. The lower the price point of unit or the lower the cost of the contractor, again, this is not set in stone. You typically have to deal with the baggage that comes along with it, right? Are they buying crack? Are they getting drunk? Are they showing up at 10 and leaving at 2? Like you want the guy that's running a tight ship, that's licensed, bonded, like his guys are drug tested. They're there at 6, they leave at 3. Like you need those types of folks to make those jobs successful. And at a 2-unit building, like how are you going to really afford their pricing? You're not. You need the 34 units or the 230 units where they can hang their banner on the side of the 18-wheeler that's sitting at the job site, because that's the level of contractor you're dealing with. So I would argue it's probably a little bit easier if you move into that realm than dealing with the little 1 and 2 unit stuff. Not that you can't be successful in it. Like I know, Aaron, you talk about it a lot. Like you like to swing the hammer still. If you're the guy that likes to swing the hammer and can do a lot of that stuff, like, dude, you can do very well popping out a house or 2 a year. You don't need to do the volume because you can control all the stuff in-house, just like he's doing with a much bigger portfolio, right?
So Jose, I do like swinging a hammer sometimes. Sometimes I want to throw a hammer through the wall, but that's a whole nother story. Jose, do you, the contractors?
I'd like to offer you EAP.
No, thank you. The contractors you're having, I'm guessing you have commercial contractors at this point. Am I right?
Correct.
Can you walk me through the difference of, like, Harry the homeowner working with his MHIC and his part-time versus a commercial contractor? Because there's a big difference.
I mean, I think Mike already clarified that, but he's absolutely correct. Like the only time I had to take a contractor to court was when a smaller project, right? And it's for obvious reasons, right? Because you have to do more babysitting, and then you also have, like Mike was talking about, that sweet spot of 30, 40 units. That is an area where you're going to get a better contractor, but you're not one of these big, super big development companies that have to keep feeding the machine, right? They're super competitive and they have more capital, and 40 units is not worth their capital raising, right? So it's really that sweet spot. But even then, when on a 230 unit project, we're not using the same contractor that I would use to do a 40 unit project. One thing I've also learned too is having a construction management background and the degree in it. It helps me speak their language, which makes the conversation so much easier, and it just makes things so much smoother. Even talking with the architect and say, hey, I would rather have this like this, X, Y, and Z, because of my background says, this is going to be more successful. They're not going to question it.
So the commercial realm. A friend of mine was developing waterfront property down in Florida, not just one, but like an entire neighborhood. He was doing a big development, and he was having a hard time. The contractor was having a hard time finding subs because COVID and layoffs, and people are getting money for staying home and whatever else. So have you come across the same obstacles, or is it kind of like, not my problem, not my headache, you take care of it, you're the contractor, all your subs are your problem?
No, I have not. And, even on the smaller projects, I just have great relationships. And I think, what we do in real estate is really a people game. It's how you talk to people, it's how you communicate, how you understand their value. So I don't have issues even on the smaller projects. Like I said, the 40 unit projects, they're very, very, very professional. So you don't really have to deal with that either. In the bigger projects, you definitely don't have to deal with that.
Except for the one guy you brought to court.
Correct.
So tell me a story. Why'd you bring him to court? What happened? What was the background? Give me the nitty gritty.
Yeah, he was a great contractor, and I didn't have that much experience, right? So, but I mean, like, he was great at understanding the construction side. So he was smart enough that he would literally take a tool belt to every project that he was on. So you think he's coming the next day, but he's really not. So, and it's hard to get a project complete when the guy doesn't come to work, and he's just like, collecting deposits and just going to the next job, collecting another deposit. So it was almost like a Ponzi scheme, right?
What a hustle! What a shitty hustle!
Glad to see it's not just me. But so we got about 15 minutes or so. One thing I thought, do you have enough? I know it's in the planning stages, but this 230 unit development, I think that's kind of like this. That's a big deal. And from what I gather, probably your largest deal. How do you fund something like that? Like, how do you sit there and say, like, okay, I see this opportunity, but how are you funding it? Are you solely handling that yourself? Are you partnering? And then what is the exit strategy? Are you selling those as condos? Is it going to be an apartment building? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, great question. So I do have a joint venture partner that has more experience than I do, that has been doing this a lot longer than I have. But we're all are going to be raising, capital, friends and family. It's no different. It's really no different if you're trying to raise capital for
Do you have
two
a fund?
units or 40 units. No, no, no. We just once we have the documents, like we're going through zoning, so the project is still going to shift a little bit. But once we have concrete of what it's going to be, how much the funding is going to be, then we just going to send out documentation that says, hey, this is X, Y, and Z. This is the returns that you can expect. And I think your second question was, what's our exit strategy? Our exit strategy is to hold it. So we're going to hold it for at least 5 years or more. It's the same, with the 2 units, I'm trying to hold them all. With the bigger 230 unit projects, I'm trying to hold them all.
So it looks like, I'm just looking at numbers real quick. It looks like the average rent in Rossendale, where you're building that 230 unit, is 2,100 bucks per unit. Multiply that by 230 units. Like, do you equate that into it? Are you worried about the market going up or down? I personally think that the rental market is going to go sky high with the current political climate. But what do you think?
I mean, I'm not sure what the data that you're looking at, but in Boston, it goes per bedroom, right? 2,000. That might be a 1 bedroom, where
Hmm.
where a 2 bedroom is going to be closer to 2,400, where a 3 bedroom you're going to be closer to 3,000 and up, right? And similar to you guys in DC, you guys are very close to the water. We're very close to the water. And so that means that we're very restrictive of how much land that we have to build on. So because of that restriction, it actually increases the rental amount. Literally, like every year, it just keeps going up. And we have a lot of great universities in the area, so we're very insulated as far as that aspect. And also too, in Boston, a 230 unit project, it's going to take me, say, we're already been into this about 10 months now, and it's going to take us at least another year just to get through the zoning process. And then it's going to take another 6 months to get construction documents. What I'm saying is that it takes so long to get a project up and running that there's not enough, they're not building enough to support the need. So because of
So
that, we're very insulated no matter what the market does.
so when I hear that in my uneducated fireman brain, I'm like, man, that's a lot of exposure with a lot of different economic ebb and flow, if you will. But I guess to recalibrate the thinking, you have to think, like you just said, there's at the end of the day, it's a supply and a demand thing, and you have to look at it as a little bit longer term game. Whereas 1 year, like right now, rates are 6 or 7. A year ago, they were 2. You kind of understand, like, you don't know what that's going to look like by the time you actually are shovel ready, but you know that the demand is going to be there because Boston's been around for, like 10 or 20 years, right? And it's like the demand is still going to be there in 3 years whenever this thing's actually ready for occupancy. You just don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Is that
Yeah, no,
correct? Like,
you're absolutely spot on. That's just the way real estate is. But as you know, the number one thing is buy right, right?
sure.
So if you buy right, you're not too worried if the interest rate is 4 or 7. If you're worried about that, you have a skinny deal.
Yeah. Well, and I guess
And
coming from a house flipper background, like you want to get in and out in like 90 days, ideally, before the market shifts too much, because you're working on a skinny margin. It's a single house, right? Like you're trying to make 10, 30, 40, 60 grand, whatever it is. But this is a much bigger play. And I guess one of the ways I find this to try and digest these bigger units, and even with storage, I notice a lot of the commercial guys talk in terms of square foot. And I think that's allowed me to sit there and be like, oh, okay, I understand it a little bit better that way. So 230 units, that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of folks. But like, do you work in square footage? Like, are you working your construction costs and your development cost, your rental rates as a per square foot versus a per unit?
correct. We use all of those metrics to figure out, is this a good project or is this a bad project? But development is so different, right? In a sense of, I have a 2 family. I'm going to rehab a 2-family and it's going to stay a 2-family, right? We're like, I'm going to buy this gas station at a gas station price and I'm going to put X amount of units on there. So you're creating so much value just from the beginning of just getting approvals, not even before you even have a shovel in the ground. You're already creating value.
Random thing. So I know every jurisdiction is going to be different in their zoning requirements, whatever. And you said that if it's a 3-unit, then the city comes in and says who can live there, who's make affordable housing. So DC is anything 10 and above units that can come in and say who stays in 20% of the building. And then most people don't know is DC is actually built on a swamp, and we are close to the water because we're literally built on top of a swamp. And our height restrictions, you can't be taller than the Washington Monument. So everybody has a height restriction. This is why you don't see big sky rises like New York down here in DC. Are there any obstacles?
You see them; they're just across the river in Fairfax County.
Oh yeah,
right.
100%. They are. Do you see any like big obstacles, like random things like that in your jurisdiction, Jose?
I think mostly it's the affordability right now. The city of Somerville is 20% or whatever your project is. But you already know that up front, so you can pencil that in. You're already counting for that. And that's the city of Somerville. The city of Boston is 13%. However, if you go to the city and you say, I'm going to build this at 13%, and they're probably going to be like, no, we need that at 20. So it's like a negotiating act, but you're really going to put 20% on your pro forma, and you're just going to use that calculation to see if the project pencils out. Because at the end of the day, if you're working your way backwards, then that just tells you how much you can actually give to the seller. So that doesn't, as long as the rules don't really change of that, if you were like in between a project and they change the rule, like, well, 40% have to be affordable, then you might have an issue. But as far as that, I don't think that's really an issue. You just got to pencil it in.
So I like how you calculate it out. Like there's not just one metric you use to pencil these things out. It's your square foot. It's what your bed and bathroom is going to get. It's what you're buying your land from. What you have to give to the government to make them happy. There's a lot of moving metrics in this, but once you learn it, it's a skill for life. As long as they don't change the goalpost and move the goalpost, then you're good.
Yeah, and you also have to do opportunity costs, right? I might look at 3 deals. I might be going through a project and going halfway through zoning and realize, hey, this is not going to work because that X, Y, and Z change or this change, whatever the reason is. But that's an opportunity cost. It's costing you money to evaluate this deal to see if it's going to work. You just got to put that into your pro forma and through your business model.
So what's your day's looking like now leading into the future? Like what's your actionable items like right now that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to make your future better?
Yeah, no, I think it really starts with that 1 hour. As soon as I wake up, I either read or do some kind of preparation or work, and then hitting the gym. And then after that, it really changes day to day. But mostly I have 2 or 3 meetings per day for the bigger projects. I might go. A lot of it's just like networking, building our relationships. You never know who's going to bring you deals. I have one deal that it came from a zoning attorney. Having good relationships with architects. Having relationships with engineers. So always really working on those relationships and always looking for more deals. Always looking for more projects.
Nice. So we're going to start getting to the last couple of questions. Is there anything I missed that you want to go over or highlight in your expertise world?
No, I think we covered it all.
So if you were to go back and give your younger self advice, now this could be your 19-year-old self, your 14-year-old self, your 30-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
Honestly, I think I would do it all the same. I think it has gone great. It's not has gone perfect, but I mean, my company was, I was, 40 under 40, Boston Business Journal. I got a citation from the governor's office. I just did an interview for an article that top 5 developers to look out for in Boston in 2023. So I don't know if I would change too much.
Good for you, bro. Let's celebrate them wins.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Because it's not like you just said that, oh, you're the lead developer in the middle of nowhere, Westboro Township, Iowa. Like, I mean, Boston's got to be a pretty competitive climate for that kind of stuff. So,
oh, absolutely.
Like, that's no small feat, man. Congratulations. Not bad for a fireman,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's
Not
like-
to have a government worker.
yeah. So, what does your company look like? I know we're in the wrap up stages, but I just wanted to kind of get an idea. Like, what does your company makeup look like? How many people now?
Yeah, right now I'm really focused on the development side. That takes up all my day. That's my real focus. And I also have a property manager. She takes care all the assets that I already own and already hold. And the reason why I want to do it like that is I want to just build my company the right way. And when I mean the right way, it goes back to my military background. I was on the Marine Corps SWAT team, so I understand the value of having a small team but very effective. So that is exactly how I'm trying to build it out. Going forward, some of the things that I'm looking for is somebody that's going to be analyzing more deals as far as like pencil them out, performer. I'm definitely looking to add that person next.
Nice.
So it's you and one other person doing all this, and the rest is basically subbed out.
Correct.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, that's nimble right there, man.
Good delegation skills. So, all right. So one of the next questions I'm going to have for you is going to be, what's your why? Like, why do you do this day in, day out? Do you have a cap? Have you reached where you want to be at? Have you reached your goal? Do you have bigger goals? What's your why and where are you going?
Honestly, my why it's always changing, but the real focus is just community. If you look at my military career, what I have been able to do is serve my country. When I was a son of a firefighter, I was able to serve my community, right? And now I still continue to serve my community by providing housing. You know, it's really, and what I have found is when I take care of my community takes care of me.
I'm glad you said that. So yesterday, one of the guys on the job with me, we were both boxers. So he wants to partner with his cousin and open up a new gym in DC. And we got to rapping about it. And it was like, okay, well, why? And we have very good memories that kept us very humble when we were kids and kept us out of the streets and out of trouble, because the gym served as a community base for people to solve problems and learn how to mitigate street violence, we'll say. So his name's Joe. So my hat's off to Joe for opening this gym up, or trying to open this gym up to give back to the community, because that's a big thing. Is that a lot of people see us as these we'll say vultures or leeches that take from the community and don't give back, but that's not necessarily true, because we're giving the community housing options, work availability. We're creating something from nothing that the average person won't do. So hats off to you for giving back to country, community, and your fellow man. You don't have to respond.
So is there anything our listeners could do to help you, or is there anything you're looking for? And then secondly, where's a good place to get in touch or follow or see how you're reshaping Boston?
Yeah, I think the best place to follow me is actually my website. I try to stay on top of it, keep updating it, and just reaching out through stuff like Instagram. As you know, I'm super busy, but I always try to put out at least a half an hour to an hour to help the next generation of developers, of somebody that has an interest of how do I get to this next level, because I feel fortunate that I have been able to have such great mentors. So I'm always trying to pass it back, thinking like you guys, like, hey, should I create a course, or and what I mean by course, I mean, like, I want to give something back for free, not to make a profit.
So what's your handle on Instagram?
It's Josue _Velney_.
And your website?
VelneyDevelopment.com.
And your Facebook?
My Facebook, that's also Velney Development. I have a Facebook page for the company too.
Okay. Nice. So if somebody were to reach out to you, what's the best way they can buy you a coffee? What book would you tell them to read first?
Oh man, I read about 20 to 30 books per year. So that's that's definitely a hard one. But I really do love the Pumpkin Plan. It's very simple, and it really helps me to, if you look at most successful people, and the one thing that they all have in common is focus.
Nice. Okay. All right, guys, got anything else that we missed? Mike, Tyler?
No, I mean, there's a lot we could have continued to talk about, but I know you're a busy man, so we're going to let you go. But thanks for joining us, man. We greatly appreciate you sharing your journey and your story, and it's going to be exciting to watch you kind of keep evolving into the Baron of Boston. So awesome, man. Congratulations on your success thus far, and best of luck on your future endeavors.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for hopping on, man. Talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.